Saludos a toda la afición de la lucha libre. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de Lucha Libre Online. Y tenemos el enorme privilegio de presentarles a nuestra invitada especial en la tarde de hoy, representando a múltiples empresas durante toda su trayectoria, pero lo más importante, una veterana de 21 años de experiencia dentro del cuadrilátero, anteriormente conocida como Raisha Said, anteriormente conocida como Mariposa, y es cheerleader Melissa is in the house here on Lucha Libre Online. Melissa, it is an honor for us to have you as our guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on. I love you guys. I get most of my news, or pretty much like all my news, from your Instagram.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you for accepting the interview with us. And we wanted to ask you, wanted to start this interview, your origins, like which was the wrestler or the match or the rivalry that inspired you enough to do this as your profession for the rest of your life?
Oh, that's a good question. So it started. So basically, it started with my dad. My dad and he wrestled for a couple years in the early 80s with his brother, Bill Anderson. So they were like the Fabulous Andersons in Southern California. So, family curse, however you want to take it, just, grew up around it, went to wrestling shows to watch dad wrestle. Sometimes all the boys would get together at somebody's backyard, and they would actually like film a bunch of promos for the upcoming TV shows, and then like do a barbecue afterwards. And then, so, I was kind of like around the industry from like a really early age. And then in high school, I was very, very athletic. So I was actually one out of 4 girls on my high school wrestling team.
Wow.
And so thankfully I had like an amateur background to start with before going into pro wrestling. And then my uncle Billy Anderson, he had a school in San Bernardino, and I joined that when I was 15 years old. So I went from amateur wrestling to pro wrestling at like a very young age. And so that's how the ball kind of got rolling. 15 years old is kind of young to think, oh, I'm going to do this forever. And did I think that? No, absolutely not. I did not. It didn't. I think when the ball like really got rolling was when after I moved from Southern California to Northern California to be a part of All Pro Wrestling. And then at 19 years old is when I got my first contract to go to Japan. So it was going to Japan and spending more than 3 months there, and that's kind of like a long time to spend there. But that's like when things like really started kicking in. And there was just like no way out after that.
Perfect. I'll translate that to Spanish. Okay.
Sorry.
No, don't worry. ¿Qué motiva a cheerleader Melissa a convertirse en luchadora? Bueno, ella dice que es parte de esa maldición o ese family curse, como ella dice, porque su familia ya era luchadores, su tío, su papá. Entonces la familia Anderson viene del linaje de luchadores. Lo interesante de esto es que después de los shows siempre hacían un barbecue y un compartir entre todos los muchachos en el área del patio de alguien, y siempre estaba como que desde pequeña, vamos a decirlo de esta manera, involucrada en el negocio de la lucha libre. Posteriormente, cuando tiene 15 años, ya era una de las 4 luchadoras amateurs en su escuela high school, una de 4. De momento su tío Billy Anderson le dice, oye, yo tengo una escuela de lucha libre, llega acá y a los 15 años hace la transición de luchadora amateur a luchadora profesional. Pero no era aquel momento en el que ella dijo, yo quiero hacer esto el resto de mi vida. No, pasaron 4 años, a sus 19 años, Melissa Anderson llega a Japón. Y en Japón pasa 3 meses. En esos 3 meses, claro, es un tiempo bastante largo, como ella dice. Y ahí es que ella se da cuenta como que, ok, todo empieza a tomar su rumbo. Y ahí es que ella decide hacer de esto su profesión. Pero pasaron muchas cosas. El hecho de ser parte de una familia o el hecho de empezar desde temprana edad no fue lo que la ayudó a decidir, sino fue este viaje o este primer viaje a Japón. So does being a second generation wrestler puts extra weight in your shoulders?
I think being a second generation wrestler would put extra weight on anybody's shoulders if you were trying to follow in that person's shoes. Like, for example, Goldust is a great example. He didn't really follow exactly in his dad's shoes. He went a completely opposite direction, and he kind of created his own memorable, legendary gimmick, just like his dad had, but completely on his own terms. So yes, it's tough if you're following in somebody's shoes exactly, but clearly I definitely went a different path than my dad did. So my own path was like my own journey.
Perfect, I'll translate that. Ser luchadora de segunda generación le pone presión en los hombros a Melissa Anderson. Bueno, si eres una persona intentando seguir esos pasos de tu papá y llenar esos zapatos, pues sí, pero ella hace una comparación bastante práctica con Goldust o Dustin Rhodes, que él nunca intentó ser The American Dream, él intentó siempre ser su propia persona, y es lo que pasó con Melissa Anderson. Melissa Anderson sintió que ella debía hacer las cosas de su lado, de su manera, y creció aparte de lo que era su papá, lo que es algo muy interesante. What do you recall from your first pro wrestling match? Usually it is not what people expect at all. So how was Melissa Anderson's first pro wrestling match?
Oh, my first pro wrestling match was, I think it was nerve-wracking, and I would love to forget it. I would love to forget it. But I just remember being super nervous and having no clue what I was doing. But it was really fun because it was really fun and really interesting because I remember there were other famous WWE or former WWE wrestlers that I grew up watching. For example, I remember there was Jake the Snake, Honky Tonk, and Bushwhackers were all on that card. And you can't get more 3 insane, crazier personalities than that in like one locker row. So you can imagine like my mind was just, I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, huh, this is what I signed up for, huh?
I'll translate that. Ella dice que trata de olvidar su primera lucha, que es como que vamos a tratar de sacarla, pero se sentía bien nerviosa. Había un pequeño factor que influyó en eso, y es que en el backstage ese mismo día estaban 3 figuras, bueno, técnicamente 4 figuras, que ella vio creciendo. Uno fue Jay the Snake Roberts, uno fue Honky Tonk Man, y los otros 2 fueron los Bushwhackers. Y es como que, ok, espérate, yo filmé para esto, yo me apunté para esto, así que aquí estoy, y tuvo que meter manos en su primera lucha. Fast forwarding a little bit in time, you became a hot commodity in the independent circuit, and you got after that signed by TNA. How did you got to Total Nonstop Action Wrestling? Who was the first person that contacted cheerleader Melissa and said, okay, I want you to come here to Nashville?
The first person to contact me about that was Amazing Kong, or Awesome Kong at the time. Dutch Mantel was the creative and the agent for the women's division, and Awesome Kong just came on board, and he wanted a mysterious manager for Kong. And the reason why she recommended me is because I had actually almost did the exact same character for WWE before that.
Oh.
It never went to television. But do you remember Muhammad Hassan?
Of course.
Yeah. So there was before that, I was approached by someone in WWE, and they were explaining that it was going to be a tag team. It was going to be Muhammad Hassan, another person, and then a female. So I actually recorded some promos in that character backstage, and so the ball was kind of rolling for that. And then ultimately, long story short, they decided they didn't want a group, they just wanted a singles wrestler, so that kind of canceled my character out. But Awesome Kong knew about that, and Dutch had literally pitched the exact same character, his idea. And she's like, oh, I know somebody who's already done that. So that's how that came about.
Oh, interesting fact. I'll translate that to Spanish. Antes de llegar a TNA, obviamente en TNA, quien le da la llamada es Awesome Kong. Dutch Mantel era el jefe creativo en aquel momento dado, y necesitaba a alguien misterioso para ser la manejadora de Awesome Kong. Pero lo interesante de esto, yo no lo sabía, y es que Melissa Anderson, o cheerleader Melissa, hizo un personaje bien similar para WWE. ¿Para quién? Para Mohamed Hassan, el grupo que tenía Mohamed Hassan, Daivari. Pues grabaron promos, iba a ser un personaje bien similar al de Raisha Said, pero para WWE, y en su momento dado todo estaba bien, grabaron promos, estaba todo que parecía que eso iba a ser el plan final. Y al momento final, pues WWE decidió cancelarlo e impulsar a Mohamed Hassan como singles character. Pero entonces Awesome Kong sabía que ella hizo eso y ahí es que entonces le da la llamada y le dice a Dutch Mantel, tengo la persona perfecta para eso. Y así es que Melissa entra directamente en TNA. So, whose idea was to create, Raisha Saeed, a girl from Syria that would be, managing Awesome Kong? Was it your idea originally or Dutch's
No,
idea?
it was originally Dutch Mantel's idea.
Okay. So after that, you worked for us with Awesome Kong and TNA for a while. What do you recall working with her specifically, like as your partner? I mean, you guys should travel together or basically plan everything. So how was your experience working with Kong?
My experience working with her was so great. I love her. We're still besties until today. We were each other's crying all the time, like any shenanigans or anything. So my experience with her was really great because it was like working with my best friend, and it was a good time. We loved traveling together. We do miss hanging out together. We don't live close to each other anymore, but we still talk all the time, and it was just so great to work with your friend.
Perfect. ¿Cómo fue para Melissa Anderson trabajar con Awesome Kong? Bueno, trabajaba con su mejor amiga. Obviamente estaba contenta, hacían todas juntas. Todavía siguen en contacto pese a que viven en lugares completamente diferentes y sí le gustaría tenerla cerca, pero en aquel momento dado, obviamente todavía siguen hablando y todo, pero fue una experiencia sumamente buena. Obvio, trabajar con tu mejor amigo, eso es como que that's the dream de muchas personas. Fast forward a little bit in time, we saw Raisha Saeed getting out of Impact Wrestling at that point, TNA. Was it your decision to part ways with the company?
No, it wasn't. But what happened was is that backstage or behind the scenes, there was a lot of changes. There was a lot of changes going on, and ultimately it started with it started with Dutch Mantel and like kind of that side of the backstage getting let go, which really hurt the female division at the time because Dutch Mantel was really like the spine and the backbone and the brains for the Impact Knockouts at the time. So, when he got let go, ultimately just like the women's division like suffered. And it was me and Sojourner Bolt. I don't know if you remember her, but it was like we were like the first two to get released. Ultimately, for a couple of reasons. One, our contracts were about to expire anyway, and also that's when Hulk Hogan was coming into the company, and he was just changing everything. So yeah, he was just changing everything. So I don't think that was the direction he wanted to go, anyways.
Okay, I'll translate that. ¿Por qué Raisha Saeed en aquel momento dado toma un camino separado a Impact Wrestling o TNA? Ocurre el famoso cambio de administración en donde ya no son los mismos dueños, ahora son otros dueños y de momento deciden sacar una parte creativa de la empresa. Dutch Mantel, quien era, como ella dice, la espina dorsal de la división femenina o de la división de las knockouts en aquel momento dado. Al irse Dutch, hay dos contratos que están a punto de expirar, el suyo y el de su compañera. Y ahí era tarde o temprano iba a ocurrir, sale de la empresa, pero también venía Hulk Hogan por ahí y no era la dirección que Hogan quería tal vez tomar en la empresa. Fast forwarding a little bit in time, we saw a particular gimmick with Marty the Moth Martinez on Lucha Underground, and that's Mariposa. Who reached out to you from the Lucha Underground project? How did that happen?
Oh, yes. Wow, I had to think about that for a second. Like, how did that happen? I remember me and AJ Kirsch were already, I don't know if you remember AJ Kirsch, but we were already in town. Yeah. So we were already in town for a different wrestling project in the Hollywood area. And we went to Lucha Underground. And then basically we said hi to everybody backstage. And I was very flattered because two of the writers were like, "Oh, we know you. You're cheerleader Melissa," and they were both former WWE writers. So, and I'm thinking, really? I'm like, "Oh, okay," So then that's when the talks kind of got started. And as far as like the Mariposa gimmick, they explained to me that when they had written Lucha Underground, because we have to remember, Lucha Underground is a TV show. It's not a wrestling company. It's a television show. It's not like it wasn't all the time. But when they had written out Lucha Underground before putting the cast together, it was going to be based around these 7 tribes. And they had already like created these characters. And not only had they already created these characters, they already created like the costumes. And I went backstage and they had all of these costumes already on like mannequins, like ready to go. Like the 7 main costumes. So that's when the talk started. But I kind of had a choice between Mariposa and Cobra Moon, and I went with Mariposa.
Interesting. I'll translate that. En aquel momento, ¿cómo llega cheerleader Melissa a Lucha Underground? Ni ella misma se acordaba. Tuvo que pensar cómo fue que eso pasó. Llegó eventualmente el día en que AJ Kirsch y ella, AJ también estuvo en Tough Enough y en otra serie, llegan allí, pues, estaban en el área de Hollywood, vamos allí, vamos a saludar a la gente backstage, a nuestros compañeros, y hay 2 escritores ex WWE que le dicen, oye, tú eres cheerleader Melissa, yo te reconozco, yo sé quién tú eres. Y ella como que, oh, perfecto, me reconocieron, sé quién soy, saben quién soy. Y historia larga corta, comienza esta idea y tenían unos personajes ya desarrollados y tienen atuendos y todo, y le presentan 2 alternativas a cheerleader Melissa, Cobra Moon y Mariposa. Ella selecciona el personaje o el gimmick de Mariposa, mientras que Cobra Moon, si no me equivoco, se lo dieron a Thunder Rose en aquel momento dado, que fue la persona que terminó siendo el personaje. What do you recall? I mean, I saw the Lucha Underground show from the first season to the last one, and the thing that amazed me the most was the audience, the temple, the crowd. Oh my God, I wanted so bad to be there. How was your experience? How was your experience working with that crowd?
That crowd was so great. They were so dedicated, but here's the thing, like the reason why the energy was always so good at Lucha Underground is because the television team, from the sound to the director to the lighting in there, the lighting, the music, the atmosphere, like that. What was so great was when it was ultimately a warehouse. You had to like walk through a weird chain link fence to get in there, and there's porta potties outside, and it's like dirt on the ground everywhere. But when you walk into this warehouse, like you literally feel like you're walking into a temple. It's not, think of it as like a roller coaster, like a Disneyland. It's, you don't just get on a roller coaster. When you get in line, it's taking you through like a cave, and there's things to do, there's things to look at, and like that was like what they created. And if I would ever to run a wrestling promotion, like I've learned so much from that, because that is key, is to just, the experience for the audience started the second you walked onto the property. It didn't start when the show started. It started the second you walked onto the property, and they had like taco food trucks. I mean, it was an experience. And like, I would show up there, or I would watch, in the audience too. And I get it. Like I had a great time. Like Lucha Underground did such a good job of making sure everybody that attended had a blast.
I'll translate that to Spanish. La clave del éxito en el público de Lucha Underground es que eso era un warehouse, como ella dice, un almacén, que tenía tierra afuera y todo, pero una vez tú entrabas al almacén, ella lo describe como una montaña rusa constantemente, que entras a una cueva, es algo distinto, era una experiencia completa, tenías todo, tú tenías todo, y todo el mundo fue parte de esa clave del éxito, las personas con la música, las personas con el lighting, con la iluminación, las personas con toda la producción, cada uno era un componente esencial para que el concepto de Lucha Underground brillara. Hasta tenían tacos, o sea, tenían food trucks a la parte de afuera con tacos. Es como que, qué mejor lugar para trabajar que ese. Among the multiple things you've done in your career, you've been in Japan, you've been in the US, you've been everywhere, but you've been to Mexico before, specifically to work with Lucha Libre AAA. What do you recall of that experience of working with AAA in Mexico, the audience, the backstage ambience, everything?
I just, what? It's funny because I have, it's just all very positive. Like, no, like no negative. It's funny because it's like the shows that are the most positive experiences, you kind of remember less of. You more remember the shows where you had like a lot of drama and a lot of craziness. But my experience with AAA was all really good. The girls were all really great. Doing the World Cup, that was fun. Yeah, when we had like all the World Cup, where like Team Canada, Team USA, Team Japan, and Team Mexico, like that was a really good time. AAA has always been so great, and they've been so respectful, and they treat all their talent really well. So I miss them, and I hope they're doing well. But it was so good.
Perfect, I'll translate that. Ella dice, obviamente, los shows que uno recuerda por lo general son los malos, donde está el drama, donde está la intensidad. En los shows como que todo fue bien, no lo recuerda mucho, pero sí recuerda, obviamente, el World Cup, todo el mundo fue muy respetuoso, la experiencia fue excelente. Among the multiple things you've done, Taiwan, All Japan Pro Wrestling, how did that happen? How did you ended up, flying to the other side of the world to do what you love to do, wrestling?
That was the craziest booking. I can't even remember how I got booked on that. I can't even remember how that even happened, but let me tell you, that was so surreal because first of all, that was like a bunch of years ago. And back then they didn't really, they don't mix women and men in the promotions. It's very separate over there. And the reason why they had a women's match is because, it was a sold, I think it was like a sold show in Taiwan, and they wanted a female match. I can't even like think of how like that even happened, but I just remember it being so surreal, like being in the same room as the All Japan talent. And I'm thinking like, what am I doing here? Like looking around. And I remember the surrealist moment from that trip is on top of in our hotel where we stayed at, the top floor was the gym, which was beautiful because it was top floor and all windows. And I got on a bicycle cardio machine and I'm pedaling away. And then here comes, Keiji Muta gets on the bicycle next to me and he says, good morning. I'm like, oh, good morning. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm doing cardio with Buddha. This is so weird. So yeah, it was so surreal, but it was great. Like if that could happen again, I can do that again, I absolutely would.
I'll translate that to Spanish. ¿Cómo llega cheerleader Melissa a Taiwán? Estando trabajando para All Japan Pro Wrestling, tenían un show vendido, querían una lucha femenina, de repente ella es la persona, llega allí y es como que, ¿cómo llego aquí? ¿Qué hago aquí? De momento está entre las muchas cosas que hace en el booking, se sienta en una bicicleta en un gimnasio, bicicleta estática, hacer ejercicio, y al lado de ella es como que Keiji Muto, The Great Muta, es como que, hola, buenas tardes, es como que estoy al lado de The Great Muta o de Muto haciendo ejercicio, es como que no puedo creerlo. Si pudiera, tuviera la oportunidad de que ocurra otra vez, claro que sí, dice ella, y obvio, hasta yo quiero hacer ejercicio con Muta. A little bit more of random things in the interview. India, Rinka King. Now you were in Raisha Saeed, you were in Mariposa, you were in cheerleader Melissa, you were in even Melissa Anderson, you were Alicia Flash, and you went to India.
And
Raisha Saeed.
I was Raisha Saeed too in India.
Both of it, yeah. How did that happen? And how was your experience working in India?
I think the way that happened is somehow a major television company in India and Impact partnered up, and they got a program going to create a wrestling TV show for India and the India family, the India audience. And I remember Jeff Jarrett was a part of that project, and they brought on Dutch Mantel. And when they brought on Dutch Mantel, he reached out to Raisha Saeed, of course, because why wouldn't he? So that's how that came about, and that was it was so different because the television episodes, what I learned is in India, it's more common to just have one TV per household. So when you have one TV per household, that means that means the whole family's watching TV together. You got grandma, mom, dad, the kids. So hence that kind of explains like Bollywood, because they put a little bit of everything in there for you. a little bit of, you know, dancing and happy, sad. They put everything there because there's something for everyone. And that's just the culture. So to be a part of a wrestling show that adjusted to that was just crazy. I mean, there was a wedding. I remember there was a wedding where nothing went wrong. Absolutely nothing went wrong. Normally in America, like everything goes wrong and it turns to chaos. Yeah, there was a wedding where like nothing went wrong. They brought in like super famous Indian performer and like literally the arena might as well have turned into a nightclub. You know, he came out performing, singing a song, all these dancers came out, you know, and there's pyro going off. And it was just the absolute most wild TV tapings I ever been, but so fun, so energetic, but I can't, like, you have to be there for that.
It's easier to explain it. I'll translate that. ¿Cómo llega Cheerleader Melissa? Esta es como Raisha Said y como Alisa Flash. Llega allá, al otro lado del mundo, a India. ¿Cómo? Ok, Jeff Jarrett tiene este proyecto en donde TNA se unió a otra empresa con el proyecto Ring King, y esos eran unos TV tapings, trae a Dutch Mantel como bookings. ¿Y quién es la primera persona que Dutch Mantel decide traer para allá? Ok, vamos a traer a Raisha Said. ¿Por qué no? Vamos a traerla para acá. Y ella llega allí y entonces ella explica el proceso de que es un solo televisor por familia, entonces tienes que darle de todo un poco, drama, comedia, acción, todo, y eso explica entonces el concepto de Bollywood, de todo en uno. Ellos intentaron hacer exactamente eso mismo en su programa. Pasó una boda, un wedding, en donde no hubo nada malo, no drama, no nada, una boda. Y trajeron estas personas de India, estos performers que prácticamente la rompieron y de momento la arena completa se transformó en un nightclub. Y ella dice como que la manera más fácil de explicarlo es tienes que estar ahí para poder vivirlo. I also want to say something else in Spanish. Pueden seguir a Cheerleader Melissa en todas sus redes sociales. Instagram como @RealFutureLegend, Instagram @RealFutureLegend, en Twitter la pueden seguir como FutureLegendCF, Future Legend CF. Y de igual manera pueden buscar todas sus luchas en Japón, en India, en México, en Estados Unidos, en todas partes del mundo. Lo pueden buscar en cheerleadermelissa.com, cheerleadermelissa.com o cheerleadermelissa.com. Ahí pueden encontrar todo referente a su carrera. Before we go to our last question, thank you so much for your time. For us, it's been more than an honor to have you here as our guest. Last but not
thank you. I'm honored to be on here.
No, they trust me. The honor is ours. I mean, you're a 21-year veteran inside the industry that's been basically anywhere. So I was really excited to do this interview. It's like I recently saw some programs where Taylor Wilde and Awesome Kong and Raisha Said and all the good old Knockouts division, and I was like, this is something I need to do before I die. So thankfully I'm here with you today.
Last bucket list checked off.
Yeah, it's like check off the bucket list. Last but not least, Cheerleader Melissa's been everywhere, but there's a certain company that was her home for a lot of time. I'm talking about Shimmer in the US. You've been everywhere, but why Shimmer was so special for Cheerleader Melissa?
Well, I think part of the reason why it was so special because Cheerleader Melissa, Shimmer gave Cheerleader Melissa really a platform to grow. That's where Cheerleader Melissa really grew. And I'm so thankful to Shimmer and to Dave Prazak for bringing in such top-notch, wonderful talent every time. They created such a great atmosphere. They created storylines. They really cared about their product. And when you have a company that really cares about their product, then the talent grows. And you know, as you can see, like there's so many girls from the Shimmer roster in WWE right now, and like and Impact, you know, and there, and I'm just so grateful that like Shimmer was a platform, you know, to get our name out there and to like, you know, show what, you know, women can do and just bring more of a name to women's wrestling that wasn't really there before for that time frame.
I'll translate that to Spanish. ¿Por qué Shimmer es tan especial o fue tan especial para Cheerleader Melissa? Porque fue la empresa en brindarle una plataforma para ella poder crecer como talento. No solamente a ella, a muchas de las luchadoras que hoy día están en WWE, que están en Impact y que están en el resto del mundo. Y cada persona merece una oportunidad. Shimmer fue la primera empresa en acoger a Melissa bajo su ala y brindarle esa oportunidad de lanzarse al estrellato y ser la veterana de 21 años de experiencia dentro del cuadrilátero que conocemos hoy día. At Real Future Legend en Instagram, at Future Legend CF en Twitter y cheerleadermelissa.com para todas sus luchas. Melissa, it's been an honor to have you here as our guest. Always wishing you success in your career and in your personal life. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. You're so wonderful.
Thank you. Y sigan pendientes a Lucha Libre Online, la marca número 1 de Pro Wrestling y Combat Sports en español para más información.